Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Video Game Club, episode 18. 18. As always, I'm Tyler, and I have with me today the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of the internet, Austin.
Hello.
And and of course, it would not be a video game club meeting without the amazing and wonderful Mox.
Hello.
As I mentioned before, this is Video Game Club, where every 2 weeks we discuss a game voted on by our wonderful friends in the Bombchu Discord and discuss the game right here on twitch.tv/BombchuTV. And if you can't catch us live, no problem. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search Bombchu. Don't worry, you'll find it. Now, before we get started, how excited is everyone about the Pokemon news? Mox, we're getting remakes.
Yay.
Are you excited?
Well, those aren't my favorite ones, but, I'm always happy about a remake, I guess.
What about the Pokemon Legends game that was announced?
I feel like this is just another, hype Cyberpunk 2077, hype explosion waiting to crash down, but it looks really good.
Definitely some Breath of the Wild vibes, for sure. Austin, what did you think? Are you not a Pokemon fan at all?
I enjoyed Blue and Yellow, and I played Gold and Crystal, and I tried to get back into it with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I played a good chunk of it, had some good nostalgia, but anytime I've tried to do X and Y, and I just could not get into. The problems I have with Pokemon are things that are core to the series that will never change, unfortunately, and it's just not something I can get that excited about.
Oh my god, it's universal. Everyone loves it.
Except for me.
So yeah, I just wanted to see how you guys thought about that news. Now I know more about Austin and how much he loves Pokemon.
Wait, what about Yokai Watch? I feel like people who have a problem with Pokemon are okay with Yokai Watch.
Yokai Watch just didn't look that interesting to me. I
Oh
haven't
my
tried
god!
it.
Austin,
all right, move on. Take us somewhere else.
He couldn't even buy it for $5.
Actually, I found it for $5 at Five Below, and they had a bunch of them. And I was just like, should I buy these to sell them online? No, nobody wants these.
Monstrous.
Here I am over here, bought one for $20, last year. Happy as a clam too. Happy as a clam.
I'm glad. I'm glad you like it.
But Austin, one thing you do like, maybe, we will see once you get to the end, is our side quest, Dragon Quest XI.
Woo!
How is your progress going?
It's going well. I just made it to Arborea, which means I have the 6 orbs. If you've gotten to the part where you're collecting orbs, I have 6 of them. And I'm getting ready to go to Yggdrasil, the tree in the sky.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I have just got all my party members, I think. We'll see. And I have 2 orbs, and I'm heading back to Octagonia, the fighting town, which was really interesting. That game, I will say this, if you are playing along with us, and you got kind of, you were like, it's getting kind of repetitive, towards the beginning.
Yes.
Just keep pushing a little bit, because it does, you do, and I hate to say that, but it does, you do get a new area, and you'll get new party members, and it really starts, at least for me, to get its hooks in you. So just try. I would say if you get to Octagonia and you're like, it's not for me, then you may want to drop it.
Finish out Octagonia. And then make that
yes,
decision.
I should say that. Yeah, finish that out, because there's some cool story moments that happen. And if you're not interested in that, then fine. And Mox, you have not started yet.
Whoa! I played, some amount of hours that I shan't reveal, and I am making my way downtown, walking fast.
Nice, but you do plan on trying to play it?
Oh yes, I intend to beat it. I like these kinds of games. However, you're right, it is quite slow. I feel like I've played a couple other Dragon Quests. I don't know. Yep. And they opened up a little bit faster, and I think your party got bigger faster, so there was more interactions.
One thing I will say before we move on is if you have the ability, depending on what version you have, you can turn up the battle speed. I highly, highly, highly recommend that. And in all versions, you can use something called tactics where you like automate what they do. Automate's a really strong word, but you get to set them to behave a certain way. And that, for me, made the game a lot more enjoyable. So depending on which version you have, check into that if you think it's slow.
So
now, the games,
I can't.
Sorry.
I can't affect the battle speed on mine because I'm using the vanilla version, but I also don't have to pay attention during battles that much because I've even set my main character to use tactics, so I don't even set what he like individual commands for him, and that's made the turn-based combat a lot more enjoyable for me. Just kind of setting the strategy for each battle instead of having to micromanage my party members.
Well, you just don't play the game. You just watch the fights.
Yeah.
Like TV.
I set the strategy that they're going to be going for.
Interesting.
Final Fantasy Zodiac Age would like to have a word with you, Mox.
Or Bravely Default, really.
And FF13.
Yeah. All right. Into Video Game Club. So the games for this episode suggested by Mox were Rhythm Heaven Megamix, Hotel Dusk, Room 215, and 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. Now, before we jump into 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, or 999, if you wanted us to discuss another game from that list, head over to the Bombchu Discord, make your voice be heard for next time. Now, let's jump into a bit of history. So, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, which I'm going to call 999 from here on out, is an adventure visual novel game developed by Chunsoft and published by Spike, not Spike Chunsoft, we'll dive into that later, in Japan, and Axis Games.
Is it not Axis? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time?
It could be Axis.
Well, now
Axis.
I'm freaking out.
Axis. I'm going to say Axis. Axis Games.
Hold on.
No, you're probably right. I've never heard of it.
Axis. Yes. Axis.
Axis Games in North America and Europe eventually. The game was released December 10th, 2009 in Japan and came to North America almost a whole year later, November 16th, 2010 for the DS.
They spent a lot of time localizing.
Which we will dive a bit into.
Yay! Good.
The DS version never came to Europe, unfortunately. But the game was released on iOS, PC, PS4, and Vita later on. So usually we haven't ran into this issue where we needed to talk about like which date do we choose between Japan and North America. So since we're all based in North America, I just chose North America because I feel like that'll be more relevant to us. So what was going on 2010 in North America around games? Here's some amazing software that came out. Super Mario Galaxy 2, Mass Effect 2, Red Dead Redemption 1, Rock Band 3, StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, Xenoblade Chronicles.
So many good games.
God of War 3, Limbo. Wow. And many, many, many others. I mean, it was a really good year for games. And there was a hardware launch. Any guesses?
2010.
No.
Would that have been like the DSi or the DSXL?
No. 360S.
I don't know anything about
this. Come on. It can't red ring because we didn't put the lights in for it to red ring.
And the engine, to my knowledge, from what I could find, is some sort of in-house engine that they use. So let's talk a bit about Chunsoft. So Chunsoft was founded in 1984 by a video game... Whoa.
That's so long ago.
Yeah. And you'll see. It was founded in 1984, by a video game designer and programmer who worked at Enix. It's headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. And this company is famous for a lot of games that I was like, what? I was so shocked. Dragon Quest, or also known as Dragon Warrior, 1 through 4.
Yeah.
They developed it. So this is like, we're playing Dragon Quest as our little side quest game right now. And I mean, it's the 11th one, which was not developed by Chunsoft, but just interesting to see. Also, the Mystery Dungeon games.
Yes, they're so cute. Oh, that's how I know Spike Chunsoft, or just Chunsoft, whatever. So cute. Sorry, keep going.
then the Zero Escape series, which we'll talk about, and this murder series called Portopia Serial Murder Case.
I don't know.
The company was purchased in 2005 by Duango, which is a telecom company in Japan. And then they merged with Spike in 2012 to become Spike Chunsoft. And a little fun fact about Spike Chunsoft is they publish Western games in Japan. So think like, big Western RPGs in Japan. Their most recent one of their most recent ones, I should say, being Cyberpunk 2077.
Ooh.
Wait, doesn't Spike Chunsoft do Danganronpa?
That was Spike that does that.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is Spike Chunsoft a separate company from Spike?
No, so they got merged. So it could be Spike Chunsoft now.
Well,
that does
I feel like they updated the logo on their later republishing of the games. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot. So there's like a lot about these companies that we could dive into. I just tried to do the highlights.
No, I want to talk about the game. Get into
it. So Spike was founded in 1989, headquartered in Tokyo as well. They specialize in localizing and publishing games. They localized Dead Island, Homefront, and Dragon Age Origins in Japan. And as I mentioned before, they merged with Chunsoft in 2012. Axis Games is a bit of a newer company. They were founded in 2006, headquartered in California, and they specialize in translating and localizing Japanese video games to US markets. They work on these series such as like Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, however you say it, and then a lot of like Otome games, like the romance Japanese games. Mox, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just move on.
But before I move on, Austin, are you a big Guilty Gear person?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on then. So on to our game. 999. An adventure game in which a player assumes the role of a college student named Junpei. We're going to dive a bit into the gameplay, just like a generic overview so people can understand like what kind of game it is. Then we're going to put on the spoilers tag, and this game is all story. So just heads up, like if you're going to play this game, just mute the stream until you see the spoiler tag go away, because you don't want it ruined for you. Because there's almost no sense in playing the game if you know the story, I would argue. And then after that, we'll come out of that, we'll talk about development and reception, like always. So, talking about the gameplay before we get into spoilers. So the gameplay is divided into two types of sections, novel and escape. The novel sections are where you get like your storyline, you talk with characters, there's text, you read, you understand like what Junpei's thoughts are, and you have interactions with the other characters. Every once in a while, there'll be like some decisions in the game that you have to make, which result in the story branching. It has like 6 different branches, I think, overall at the end. And each one has a unique ending. You cannot experience the whole plot in one playthrough. You have to get to a true ending, which we will talk about, to get all the information behind the mystery that's going on. And some of the endings contain hints to like future endings. In the escape sections, you basically are doing like a puzzle solving, sort of point and click interactions.
Like an escape the room kind of thing.
Yeah, and what's really cool about these sections is that, so you're in like a predetermined position. You can move in some cases, but it's more about like rotating around the room. But everything that you need to solve the puzzle is in that room. Which that was one of the things that I really like, because they're self-contained. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I need to look and find, like, say you solve all the puzzles, you don't need to like look around even more to see if you need to grab something for a future puzzle, for example.
Is this distinction, I feel like it isn't this separate on the DS version, but this is how it is on the PC version?
That was
on
my
the DS version as well.
I
That
guess
was
it's
my
not
experience.
like, it's okay. I guess it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel that special. I'm used to, whatever, keep going.
Yeah, you play through that, you get to endings, and that is essentially the game. It's divided into those sections. There's a lot of characters and stuff which we will go into. But before doing that, I'm putting on that hot spoiler tag right now. Okay.
Yay.
So, we're going to start with a little overview of the characters and the plot, and then we're going to get heavy into story details where Mox is going to tell us why she made me play this game. So, 999 features 9 main characters who are forced to participate in the Nonary games by an unknown person named Zero. The characters adopt codenames to protect their identities due to the high stakes of the Nonary games. You control Junpei, who you're joined by June, who is a nervous girl who's like a friend of yours.
From childhood. You had a crush on her in childhood.
And you know June as her real name, which is Akane.
Is that Akane?
She's
Akane,
Japanese.
sorry.
What is wrong with you?
I don't speak Japanese.
It's worthwhile to point out that they're wearing wristbands that have numbers on them, and that's where they get their nicknames.
That's true.
Right. So each of their names is like themed off of their number, which is cool. Except for Junpei, because his name gets revealed to everybody.
Well, because Akane just yells it. It's just like, oh, it's Junpei, Jumpy.
Yeah.
Jumpy. But his has a 5 on it, for those who... and June's has a 6 on it. You also meet someone called Lotus, who has the number... What?
8.
Number 8 on it. Yep.
She's a dancer.
Yep. 7. A large, muscular man. I don't think you ever find out his real name.
Yeah, you do.
You do? Okay. Santa. Number 3. He's a punk with like a negative attitude. Ace. Number 1. An older and wiser man. Snake. Number 2. A blind man who like appears to be like a prince. Clover.
I think it's funny you're describing them the way that Junpei does, which has really nothing to do. And you're right, we don't know Seven's real name, but we learn who he is. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, Clover, who is a girl that has a bunch of mood swings. She's 4. And then
she's
the 9th...
Snake's sister.
Yeah, and then the 9th man, who is just like a nervous person who dies early on. So, yeah, I don't know, should we talk about just a little bit I guess let's dive into like what Junpei is trying to do. Like, what are the Nonary games? Mox, do you wanna, or Austin?
I could. So it's an escape game. They wake up in this ship-looking place, and they have to get out, and they learn that there are doors that are painted really creepily, probably with blood, that they can enter if they scan their wristbands, which I guess their watches. Watches tell time, and these watches do not tell time. They scan their number, and then this whole game is based on digital routes, which I feel like is not a thing that you would ever use except in Zero Escape. But like the digital route of 14, 1 plus 4 is 5.
We had to, and my comp, and like programming 1, I think we had to like write a program to do that just for an exercise. But
yeah, I can't think of any purpose to use them in real life. And I haven't had, other than writing like really basic programs in programming classes, that's it. Yeah. But anyway.
The rules are like super detailed to where it's like, okay, between 3 and 5 people can go in. And once the door opens, if you go in, like everyone has to activate something on the other side to mark that they went in, or they explode, which everyone has a bomb inside of them that's been implanted, as we discover when the 9th man forces somebody at knife point to help him get inside of a door thinking he can escape on his own. Spoilers, he cannot. Yeah.
So the goal is to enter the 9th door, the door with the number 9 on it, and that's how they leave. So it's like a death game in that they're timed. I forget how much time they have.
9 hours.
Oh, you're right. It's right in the title, isn't it?
Yeah.
At the time, if it was only 9 hours, gosh, this game would be super short. Probably spent like 50 hours on this game.
Whoa. You have to be exaggerating.
I guess let me get my DS. I don't know where I put it.
Oh my gosh. All right.
You read all the text. It takes forever. And this was on the DS version where you have to play every storyline.
Right.
So you just fast forward, but it still takes time.
On remasters of the game, there's a a timeline feature where you can jump around anywhere on the timeline that on any path or like splits instead of having to replay from the start and just skip the dialogue that you've already read. And replay the escape rooms.
Where do you like pop in on the
you get to it has like a map kind of like what the story branches are, and it in like each novel or escape section has like a little square, and you just pick which square. So like if you see a branch, you want to pick the novel square like right before that, and then you just like go into that map, you click that square, and then like it brings you to that section, and then you choose the other decision, right?
My understanding is it was taken from Virtue's Last Reward.
Okay.
So if you use that timeline feature on there, it's I imagine it's pretty similar to the way that one worked.
Now, what I liked about actually, almost what I didn't like about Virtue's Last Reward is that it would be like, here's a branch point. I don't know, you don't know what's going to happen at the other branch point, but there's like some choice here that changes it, which kind of spoils it, because then you're like, all right, what's the choice? Where's the choice? Mm-hmm. Does this game do that? Does it say like, oh, here's a branch point? You don't know it yet, but you'll come back here.
It doesn't say that, but you are given like A or B. Like, do you want to go with these people or these people? But it doesn't specifically say, depending on what you say, this is a branch point.
You know it's going to be a different path because you're choosing what door you're going to go into. But I mean, that was there in the DS version as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't explicitly say, you have another decision, come back again or something,
Okay. That's good. I forgot what we were talking about.
No, we were just giving a little overview of the game. So like Austin said, you have to go through the door. As soon as you go through the door, everyone has to put their wristband up to like a device so that the person knows that, these people have gone through that door, not just activated it only. Whenever that happens, then you can start solving the puzzle to escape that room. When you're in those rooms, you have conversations with the people that are in there, and you learn more about the story and their relationships, etc. So, should we just go into the endings, maybe?
I don't even, it's like not even, you're like you said, it's like not even worth talking about the endings if you're not going to play the game, because the endings are the whole point of the game.
It is, yeah, it really is.
It's like, I don't even want to spoil it. Just play it. But I know that's not right. People are listening.
I mean, so Tyler doesn't really know the extent of the true ending, so I feel like this is a good opportunity for us to fill in the gaps for him. Since he did play it, but isn't going to go for the true ending.
I can tell you what happened in my playthrough, and then maybe that will help some.
Yes.
So, so like everything starts off pretty standard. Like they all start off at the same point. I don't remember who exactly like I decided to follow, but I do remember that there were some key story things that happened. One was Ace ended up taking like some sort of medicine. He like stayed behind at this one part. Also, like we lost Snake as well, which I think probably happens, and then we find out that he's dead. That may not happen in all branches, but that happened in my branch. We get towards the 9th door, and I see 2 doors with the number 9 on them, and I'm like, this is interesting. And then I go to find everyone because it's just me and June, I think. I go to find the others, and I get stabbed. I see Lotus, who has been stabbed, and then I get stabbed in the back, and I die. And that was essentially my... Now, I'm skipping like some stuff, some conversations and things I learned about characters, etc. But for the most part, that was my ending. I died by what I believe to be a knife, someone stabbing me in the back. The way he described the being stabbed, though, is exactly what I imagine being stabbed feels like. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, then there's
a lot of good writing in this.
It was localized very well too. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, which we will talk about with the dev part of this. But yeah, that's kind of really like all I know. Like I know they mention a lot in this game about morphic resonance.
In the morphogenetic field, yes.
Yeah, which is this whole thing of like if 2 people have a close connection in some way, or I should say objects or things, because it doesn't only it's not only people. But if two things have like a close relationship, if one thing's happened to the other one will like do that or feel that or react to that in some way. That part was like a little dark for me, only because I've only heard of that from like Nazi Germany things that were happening. So they did a lot of experiments like that on people, especially, unfortunately, like a lot of special needs people. They would like, like burn someone's feet and see if the twin could feel it in the other room, stuff like that. And that was so that was like my association with this morphic resonance stuff. They also talk about like this whole Ice 9 thing, which is like ice that like a liquid that has like a higher melting point.
It's a variant of like regular water, but it's ice that melts instead of at, regular temperatures. It melts at, what is it, like 97 degrees Fahrenheit? But the special thing about it is that it like, quote unquote, infects other water that it touches, and causes the other water to become Ice 9, which like relates to the morphogenetic field in that like forces impact other things in like a weird way. Anyway, keep going.
So let's go over some of the endings that don't, like, one of the endings, for example, is about learning how there was a nonary game before this one.
Yes.
Does Moxie want to talk about that?
I can't parcel apart all of the endings because I feel like they aren't endings. In that, like, when I think of a typical video game, I think of like, well, if you play it this way, then you get the Renegade ending, or this way you get the whatever ending. Paragon? I forgot what the opposite of Renegade is. But I feel like in this game, the point of each ending is for the player character Junpei to learn what happened in that storyline, so that when you replay it, you have that information on the next playthrough. And they have an in-game explanation as to how that can be possible, and it's the morphogenetic field. And I want to go into more spoilers, but I don't want to like ruin the game,
I mean,
anybody.
I think it should get explained.
Okay.
Because it's a really cool idea, and I don't think Tyler's ever gonna play through this again. But I do want him to understand why we picked this game.
So the premise is that there was that first Nonary Games 9 years ago, and we learned that Akane and her brother Aoi, I don't know how to pronounce that one. Aoi is how you spell his name. They were two, like, of a sibling pair, and the premise of that game, the first Nonary Games 9 years ago, at from the time of the game, was to test the morphogenetic field, morphic resonance theory. So they put one set of like the siblings who were transmitters, I guess, in like Nevada, in like a ship-looking area. And then they put the other half of the siblings, who are the receivers, in the Gigantic, who is the twin ship of the Titanic, which really, I feel like, has really no bearing on the premise of the game other than to make it interesting. And so the point was that they had each of the sibling pairs like go through a puzzle, and they were trying to get the transmitters to transmit the information to the receiver siblings. But in order to make it high stakes, like, the receivers were trapped in this, like an incinerator. And so the transmitters had to save their sibling, had to like learn this information, and hopefully the idea of the morphogenetic field would be true and they'd be able to save their siblings. You learned that I think one girl died in the thing, the Nonary Games. The other children were saved. And then eventually you learn it was Akane that died. But then you're like, wait, how can Akane be here? And then you learn that she somehow like saved herself, and now she's here trying to complete the time loop so that she doesn't create a paradox, bootstrap paradox, by having Junpei save her past self. And so you learn that Akane is actually Zero. She's the one that has created this whole situation, fabricated the whole, like, why everybody's here in order to replicate the Nonary Games, so that Junpei can be what is it? Because she was reversed. She was not she was supposed to be a receiver, but she was actually like a transmitter or one or the other. She got in the wrong group, so she was unable to like be helped because her and her sibling were reversed. You also learned that Santa is AoE, her brother, and them two working together are kind of the creators of the non-R games. Anyway.
Whoa.
So the whole point of the replaying the episode or the timelines is so that you learn information that you wouldn't otherwise be able to learn. And it works better on the DS, but the whole point is that the top screen is what Junpei sees in the present, whereas the bottom screen are the puzzles that Akane is transmitting to Junpei in the past. So I don't know how they do it. I guess you say they split it up with like, I don't know how they do it in the PC game, because that's like the whole premise is that Akane is transmitting the answers to the puzzles that Junpei does in the present. And then at the end, they both end up in the same puzzle at the end, which is a Sudoku puzzle. And that's how, like, Junpei and saves past Akane is by helping her, like, complete the Sudoku. And they complete it at the same time, which is cool because it's mirrored on the dual screen. I don't know what it looks like on the PC. And then everybody gets out. And I'm skipping a lot of details because they aren't really super interesting.
No, dude.
Go back.
Well, like Seven, for example, was
Yeah.
a police officer who was actually like he rescued most of the kids from the previous nonary games. Ace was
in order to get this ending though, you have to have like another ending before that, right?
You have to get the normal ending first,
which is where you learn about the whole
about the previous nonary games. Yeah.
Okay.
But, like, in previous playthroughs, you learn, like, different codes. Like, for example, the code to the coffin that Snake is in, you learn that in a playthrough. It is mutually exclusive. You cannot use that in the same playthrough that you learn the code in.
Right.
But you don't have to remember it because, like you said, the puzzles are self-contained. Like, Junpei will remind you. And he'll, like, have a moment of, like, recollection and be like, I remember this.
Why do I remember this?
Yeah, which is so cool. I won't spoil Bravely Default for you.
Whoa.
Sorry. So I like the premise of like, you think like, okay, this is stupid. Like I know the answer to the puzzle because I played that prior game. Like how can that be explained in the game? But it is. It's explained. The only thing that doesn't explain is why Akane couldn't solve a Sudoku puzzle to save her own life.
I mean, she was like 6 years old or something.
She could do all those other puzzles.
Because the information was being transmitted to her, right?
No, she is a transmitter.
She was in the wrong.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
She was in the Gigantic where she should have been in Nevada. Her brother was the receiver, and so that's why
she had other people with her though to help transmit that information. Versus the final puzzle, she was by herself.
She was alone.
So if she died in a fire, how is she here with you now?
Because you save her. It's a bootstrap paradox.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, like, the whole, like, so you save her is how she lives, but then, future Akane has to go back and set it up so past Akane could live. But, and this is like I won't spoil the other games, but there's a special, like, fact about this Junpei and this Akane. I'm trying to think of what other interesting details there are. Oh, like you're talking about how the other people are.
One thing about the so I want to talk about that little split screen stuff. So there's a bit here that is revealed that the portion of the game's narrative portrayed on the bottom screen of the DS is presented from a 12-year-old Akane's point of view during the first nonary game. In the game's 2017 re-release, Akane's perspective is actually the NVL mode that displays the narrative text, unlike the ADV mode. What's interesting on my playthrough is I only did NDL mode. I only read that one the whole time.
Oh. Can you do both of them at the same time?
No, you have to switch. You can't, I don't think there's a way to view them both at the same. You have to like go back and forth.
Huh. That's kind of frustrating. I wouldn't want to play it on this version.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
Austin,
it's not that...
did I miss something or is that...
No, that sounds right. I wish I could give you some better details. I wasn't able to complete my playthrough of this because we had the big ass freeze in Texas last week that ended up taking up a lot of my time, and I had gotten the true ending for this twice before, so I felt equipped to do that. I had actually forgotten about some of those details on the DS version when I had played the Steam version, but when I played through the Steam version to get the true ending, it worked well enough for me that I forgot that about the dual screen piece on the DS.
Mm-hmm.
So well, it's kind of more of an Easter egg than like a very important part of the game.
Okay,
right.
That's good.
But once you brought it up, it came back to me, and it was just like, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. That was a really cool thing. I actually got the whole time that you were describing the story, I was getting chills. Because it's just like, God, what a great setup of a story. But
so you're talking about who the people are, because everybody is important. All of the players.
So I guess let's go like in numeric order.
Start with Ace.
So Ace is he's the head of like the pharmaceutical company that was running the Notary games initially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which references Cat's Cradle, which is the Kurt Vonnegut story in which he describes Ice 9. Keep going.
Right. So, if I remember right, he was basically running that game to try and find a cure for the disorder that he has.
Prosopagnosia.
Thank you. I couldn't pronounce it.
That's where you can't like recognize faces, right?
Yes, which
correct.
Until
he can't recognize faces.
Which sounds like a fake thing, but it's real.
No. I had like to go to a doctor about that before.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so whenever I was in college, I had problems recognizing faces of like familiar people.
Mm-hmm.
But it like, I don't know, it like went away somehow.
Yeah,
it was weird.
We don't know much about it. It can be like a neurologic thing that's permanent, something that you're born with, or it can happen as a result of like a traumatic brain injury.
No, I didn't have any. It was weird. I just like could not recognize faces, and it was only for like a little bit of time, and I don't know, it was really weird. And I went to the doctor, and they were just like, we need to watch this.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt to talk about, so the way that the way that Junpei figures out that Ace has, or confirms that he has prosopagnosia, is he goes up to Ace and he's like, who am I? And, he's like, oh, you're Junpei. And then Junpei says, no, I'm Santa. And then he says, no, Santa wears an X wristband. What does he wear? Like a 3 wristband. Mm-hmm. You're wearing a 5 wristband. And it's like, he's like, see, a normal person would have said, I recognize you by your face. But I mean, you recognize people by like the fact that Santa's wearing white and that his hair is weird. Anyway, keep going.
Well,
sorry.
It's also used with Snake.
Yes.
Because, Snake is dressed as, in a certain way that somebody else gets. Was it the captain of the ship or
I can't remember now.
Somebody else.
It was a minor fact point.
Somebody else is basically drugged and made to and dressed the same way as Snake, and Ace knows Snake and wants him dead.
Oh,
so he kills this other guy who's dressed up to look like him.
Oh,
thinking
crazy.
that it's Snake and that Snake is dead. And but actually, Snake has been just like taken somewhere else. I think it's actually him in the coffin, but he's been also drugged to make his heartbeat super slow so that he appears dead, but he is indeed alive.
Jesus.
I think someone drugs him and dresses someone else up as Snake for the express purpose that Ace would kill them. That other person being a fellow like CEO or whatever that started the Nonary games.
That's
9 years
right.
ago.
It's another one of the pharmaceutical. Yeah. There you go.
But so Snake is 2, and he was in the first Nonary games.
So he's just back for more fun.
He was brought here by Akane.
Akane and Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so 3 is Santa.
3 is Santa.
Which is
he's pretending to be going along with everything, but he's helping Akane. I think at one point it seems like he's 0, but
yes.
And his wristband works differently than
although it says 3, I believe his is a 0. His wristband is actually the number 0.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then 4 is Clover, who is Snake's sister.
I think she does a lot of the killing in some of the other endings.
Yes.
she goes insane after
after her brother died.
Her brothers died, and she she does a lot of killing. Unless you do the true ending, and then I don't think she does any killing. But
she was in the Virtue's Last Reward, the next game.
Oh,
she plays a bigger role in that one. Anyway, keep going. So she's 4. 5 is
you.
Junpei.
6 is Akane, and then 7 is 7.
Oh, and,
so
hold on. Akane's bracelet is the official term. Is actually 9. It's a 6 inverted.
Which is a really interesting thing, because like 0 will add nothing, so it keeps the digital root the same, but 9 also behaves the same way in keeping the digital root the same. There's a lot of interesting stuff they do with the digital roots and like the different room codes and stuff like that.
And math.
That was just really like anytime they would explain it, I was just like, oh, come on. And then they would explain it, and it was just like, they did the math. It's super cool.
And they contrived it, both, Santa and Akane, or whatever, Aoi and Akane, contrived it such that they could enter any room that they want. It didn't matter what combination they went with, so they could be anywhere they needed to be to ensure that the Nonary games was completed.
Yep.
Okay, wait, so that was 6, 7.
So 7 was the private investigator who helped get most of the kids out the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And was able to save everybody the second time when they, finished it.
Right, yeah.
8.
So he just kind of seems like an oaf at first, but it's like he ends up surprising you with his backstory.
Well, he has like amnesia or whatever, and then he remembers, which is kind of silly.
Right. Yeah.
8 was Lotus.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The dancer with many abilities,
many talents.
She talks a lot about, if I remember right, the Ice 9,
yes.
And like she kind of introduces the ideas of like the bigger ideas of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She also used to be a computer hacker.
I forget. She doesn't have really a larger role in being there. Or if she does, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't remember why she's there. She might be there just to introduce the morphogenic fields and Ice 9 to you, but
I don't even remember her real name.
Yeah, neither do I.
We're useless.
She's not that important.
Going. Okay,
no. But she is there.
9 is
she's there to look pretty, I guess.
So what about 9? 9's just the guy that. What's his history?
He's like one of the CEOs of the pharmaceutical. So he recognizes Ace, but Ace doesn't recognize him, obviously due to his prosopagnosia. So Ace lies to the 9 guy to contrive a situation in which 9 gets himself killed, so that Ace can remove him from the game to try and escape.
Okay.
Yeah, because he ends up I think he figures out that the 9 wristband can get him into any door, and so he actually goes and takes his wristband after he dies, so that he can try and use it.
Because you only need 2 people to get through a door, right? You don't need, or do you need 3? You need 3.
I think it's 3 to 5.
You're right, because they always take someone hostage.
Yeah. Anyway, they all manage to solve the puzzle and escape. And except for Ace, I believe. But the rest of them all get out. No, he's tied up in the back.
He's tied up in the back.
That's right. They have him tied up in the back. That's right.
Yeah.
So they figure out that they're in the Nevada test site. They're not actually at sea. They're in the Nevada site that was the original location of the Nonary games 9 years ago, not in the Titanic, or rather the Gigantic. Sorry.
Yeah. And then
they go ahead.
They also isn't there an epilogue where they pick up someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Alice.
Yeah.
She's mildly important, but she's the they kept telling you the story about how on the this cursed mummy was on the Titanic. She was frozen. Her name they decided was Alice, which was all ice.
Yep.
They was the stupid thing because she's frozen. And the same person who bought the Gigantic at what is it called? An auction, also bought Alice's, tomb thingy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so then, they brought her to Nevada where it is warm enough for her to have melted over 97 degrees. If you haven't been to Nevada, it's quite hot there. And so as they're leaving in this conveniently placed SUV that was right outside the Nevada test site, as they, finish the final ending, they see someone who's dressed in kind of Egyptian clothing with their thumb out. You just see the picture of it. Like, so, but she comes back in the other games.
Okay.
So that is a bunch of spoilery, amazing stuff about 999. I'm glad that I know now, like, the true ending and what happens.
I don't
Yeah,
think
so, like-
you know, like, everything, really.
But would I play it? Like, I had no urge to play it from the little hints that they were giving me. Like, after experiencing it once, I wasn't like... Anyway, we can talk about that later. Let's turn off the spoiler tag.
Yes.
Time is of the essence. Let's talk about the development, the release and reception, and get into our personal thoughts, because we're going a bit over. But that's okay, we'll figure it out. All right. So, let me turn off this tag. All right. Cool. So, the development. So, like we mentioned before, 999 was developed by Chunsoft, and they wanted to create a new type of visual novel that could be received by a wider audience. The director of the game is Kataro Uchikashi, and
I say Uchikoshi.
Uchikoshi, and he enjoyed playing browser-based escape the room games, and thought that they would be more interesting if there was a larger focus on telling a story. The development began in 2008. And the inspiration for the story was, where do mankind's inspirations come from? Each of the characters was based on one of the 9 personality types from the Enneagram of Personality.
Oh.
And another source of inspiration was a visual novel that they did in the past, which it was called, oh man, I'm going to butcher this so bad, Kamaitachi no Yoru. And similar to 999, it begins with putting characters in a state of discomfort. He actually worked backwards when writing the script for the game. So came up with the endings first.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then went backwards from there.
I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The game setting, with the characters trapped trying to escape, was meant to embody 2 of humanity's instinctive desires: the unconscious desire to return to one's mother's womb and shut oneself away, and the desire to escape and overcome one's current condition. There was a lot of like scrap story elements to the game. There was some stuff like everyone be handcuffed together was like one of the ideas that he threw out there. The use of hands being like a major part of the game was another one, but they were of course tossed. And the North American localization of the game was handled by Axis, which we talked about before. And this was seen as quite a large risk for Axis, because visual novels don't sell super well, or at least didn't at that time. And, you know, it was going to be a big risk for them to take this on and, you know, translate it. They struggled as well because there were like many people who didn't speak Japanese at Axis.
What?
And it was difficult for them to gauge whether or not the game was good or not, and whether they would try to localize it. But they ended up deciding to localize it. The localization was done by the philosophy of keeping true to the spirit of the original Japanese and making the dialogue sound like what a native speaker of English would say, instead of doing like exact wording. There's a lot of puns in the game that the translation team, when they published it in North America, made sure to try to find the best like English pun they could find. Localizing the game only took 2 months, actually.
What?
Wow.
It has so much text.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive for Axis and the team behind that. Some interesting stuff about this game for the release. So it was the 11th DS game to get an M rating.
Wow.
And it was a failure in Japan. It only sold 39,000 copies. The NA numbers, the North American numbers, were said to be pretty strong, but there weren't any like specifics shared with how strong they were. It was received quite well, though, getting mostly 8s and 9s. Some news outlets say it's like one of the best games of all time, and they credit it for popularizing visual novels in North America. You know, if you're like a visual novel fan, so they consider this like a must play, and even like one of the best games of all time if you do like top 100 games or whatever. And of course, after the development and the success they saw of this game, they made a sequel. And there's also a game that comes in between, right? Which we talked about before the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Virtue's Last Reward and what was the other one?
Zero Time Dilemma or something.
That's right.
So if you enjoyed this game, go pick up those. Or after you play it, if you want more, go pick up those.
They definitely expand on the story and make it even crazier if it's possible.
Ooh. Okay, that sounds interesting.
And the characters are the same. It continues the same story. I think almost all the characters, except the ones that die, make it into the next games, introducing other characters too,
so
who are related.
So my take on this game was, I should start out by saying I'm not a big visual novel fan, like I never have been. I'm not a big point and click adventure fan. I don't really like the Titanic, which is like a really small piece of this game, but I'm just saying it anyway. And so for me, like this game was just like a huge miss. It also felt a bit dated, like the puzzles weren't that interesting to me, the characters weren't that interesting, and I bet they get more interesting the more you play it, like with the other playthroughs. But for me, it just, I don't know. I did one ending, which I know is probably not ideal, but I wasn't really interested enough to see what the others were, and it just didn't grab me. So for me, I would give it like a 5 out of 10. It's just kind of okay. But that doesn't mean that you should avoid this game. It's just, it was not my cup of tea. Austin, how do you feel about 999?
I would say I'm also usually not a visual novel guy. I also don't like point and click adventure games. However, when I saw this on the original DS and it was getting all these amazing reviews, it was just like, well, I feel like I should try it. So I kind of tried it without really knowing what it was. And I thought the writing was really good. I liked that the escape rooms were self-contained, like you said. I liked that they kind of broke up it was like, here's some gameplay between your big dumps of story. And the story was so well written for me that it was just like, I kind of treated it like I was reading just a book. I know I should think of actual visual novels that way, but I think it's the gameplay that made it so that I wanted to keep going through the story, like, and treat it as a game. So I don't know. The story is so well crafted, and all the different moving pieces that come together for that true ending are just. I can't believe I haven't played the other two games in this series. I really need to do that soon. But I would say on the Steam version, I had some technical issues this time. Like anytime I was in an escape room part, the game would stutter really hard. You could see it in the VOD when during that section.
Yeah.
Also, for this hour-long video, it's like 5 minutes of that is the escape room. The rest of it is me reading story. But for that piece, for some reason, it was just stuttering super hard for me. I could not diagnose why. Like you said, the visuals are kind of dated. I was surprised that some stuff looked as good as it did on a big screen, and some stuff really did not, because it was made for a DS screen. I really liked the addition of the timeline for doing other playthroughs, but some of the stuff was just really made to be played on the DS. So I know when we were starting this, I was recommending the Steam version. Now I'm kind of feeling like I should have recommended the DS version. I think they're both great ways to play, especially if you're not having stuttering issues on PC. But I'd say for when I initially played it on the DS, I would have easily given it a 9. Just for the amazing story that it told and how engaged it kept me. On the Steam version, I would probably give it a 7 just because of the technical issues and a lot of the dated visuals. They did add voice acting that wasn't awful, which was good.
Oh, so the voices weren't there on the DS version?
No, on the DS it was just like I believe they weren't on the DS version. Is that right, Mox? I don't remember them being there, but I don't think they would have fit on that DS cartridge anyways, but
okay.
Yeah, it was just like noise, like beeps.
Yeah.
Like as the text flows. And you say there's voice acting. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was. I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, that would have been easy to mess up, and thankfully they didn't.
Yeah. Mox, what about you?
I love this game, but I love visual novels, and I love puzzle games, and I love game. I could play. I mean, well, there's that. Oh, what's it called? Steins Gate. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it.
That's a Spike Chunsoft thing, I think.
Is it? Well, it's a visual novel with no gameplay, like barely any, and I love that. So
or maybe Axis brought it to the West. One of the companies associated with this game is associated with that.
Well, I believe it because it's like right up this game's alley. But I was given this game as a gift by one of my best friends, and I had it on my wish list for a long time because, like you said, it's like, do you like visual novels? You have to play this game. You aren't even a person if you haven't played this game. But I just never got it. And then she just bought it, Morphogenetic Field. She was like, hey, I saw this game. I don't know if you'll like it, but it seemed like your kind of game. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to play it for so long. Morphogenetic Field in action right there. But anyway. This game is fantastic. I played it on the DS, so I don't know anything about the Steam version, but I also agree. I think it should be played on the DS. We talked about in the spoilers, but the dual screens plays a role in the game.
Yeah.
It also plays a role in Hotel Dusk 215, which is why I suggested that game as well. This game is like, the story just unravels as you go, and I will agree, I think we talked about it with Dragon's Quest, that like, maybe the first like 2 playthroughs, I guess, if you count each like little thread as a playthrough, you kind of got to push yourself to get to it. But there's like a point where the avalanche unleashes, and you're like, I gotta get through this game. I would say it comes after like 1 or 2 endings that you start to be like, all right, there's definitely more to this game, and I need to know what's going on. I feel like if you have that mindset and you go into the other games, the other 2, Virtue's Last Reward and Zero Time Dilemma, then you give it more patience. But those games go a bit faster, I think, and they have crazier reveals than this game, which get a little cheesy at times. Like, this one is very subtle and I feel like very neatly packaged, whereas the other ones are like, what is even going on in this game? But if you like this kind of storyline, just watch, you search like Zero Time Dilemma, the movie, and someone will have put in all the important puzzles, all the gameplay that's important, all the conversations, and then all the cutscenes.
Right.
Definitely watch that. Anyway, this is like one of my favorite games ever. 10 out of 10.
Whoa.
Highly recommend it.
10 out of 10 from Mox. You don't hear it here often, I'll tell you that. All right, well, that was 999. Our next game will be Mystical Ninja, starring Goemon? Austin,
what even?
Yep.
How do you say it?
Specifically on the N64.
Yes, don't play the Game Boy version. Thank you everyone who voted in Discord, and thank you everyone for joining. Again, just as a reminder, you can catch us here on twitch.tv/BombchuTV every 2 weeks at 2 Eastern, with the next stream being on March 14th. Oh my gosh, is that right? That cannot be right. 7?
I think it is.
Oh my lord. We are into March already. This year's moving by crazy fast. And if you can't make the live session, don't worry. You can find the episode up on YouTube shortly after. Before we leave, just a little housekeeping stuff. Bombchu, we're if you like to watch us play games and check out some new stuff, every Tuesday I try to check out a new game that we get from Keymailer or some other source. It's all over the place. It's like, we played Little Nightmares 2. We've done some like game where you're a fish. That's like a Metroidvania game.
Are you gonna play Bravely Default 2?
All kinds of stuff. Probably not at all.
What?
I don't think that game's for me, especially while I'm playing Dragon Quest. It's probably probably a hell no for me. Austin also streams almost every Friday as well. Just what's your just random things, I guess? There's no really theme, right?
I also do Keymailer stuff. I did 30XX. Manifold Garden was the most recent one I did. This Tuesday, instead of Tyler streaming, I'm going to be doing the Humble Choice because that's launching on Tuesdays now. I used to stream on Friday because that was the Humble Choice came out on Fridays, but now it's on Tuesdays, so we're figuring everything out.
Yeah.
It sounds like they ruined your life.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way.
And we may have some new videos coming up as well. New series, maybe. We'll see. But Austin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, Mox, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tyler, and this was Video Game Club, episode 18, 999, and we are out. I'd like to give a special shout out to Michael Slater, Blake Harms, and all of our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you, and thank everyone for watching.